Welcome to Homeschool Your Way, the upbeat, open-minded podcast that informs and affirms your choices about your kids' education. We'll provide a buffet of ideas to inspire you to homeschool your way, because your way is the best way. All of the content on the Homeschool Your Way podcast is provided for informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical or legal advice. The views expressed by the hosts or guests of the show are not necessarily endorsed by Bookshare.
Welcome to Homeschool Your Way. I'm your host, Jana Cook, and Bookshark's community manager. In this episode, I am joined by Dr. Colleen Kelly. She is a former professor at the University of Arizona, where she taught chemistry. She is also the creator and founder of Kids Chemical Solutions, which is why she's on today. We're going to be talking about what she has created around chemistry for younger students. What she believes is the important part of, as homeschool parents, that we can be doing to integrate chemistry at a younger age. And to give you a sneak peek, her Kids Chemical Solution is actually a comic book. So I'm going to bring Dr. Colleen in, and we're going to talk more about why she created this comic book and how she feels it's going to help homeschool parents in their journey educating their kids in science.
Hi, thank you.
Chemistry Colleen, is that your handle?
So Chemistry Colleen is my Instagram handle, and it's also my YouTube channel. So I have a YouTube channel for preschool homeschoolers, probably up through first grade, where they can do fun science activities at home with everything that you would find at home, with the chemistry twist that I always add to it.
Now, do you prefer Dr. Colleen?
You can just call me Colleen. That's fine.
All right. Well, you put a lot of work to get that doctor part, so I never want to discount that.
Okay.
So first things first, I mean, you have really done a lot in the field of education, from creating a preschool homeschool, curriculum for kids to have fun at home, all the way to the collegiate level of chemistry. And then this Kids Chemical Solutions is kind of in the middle, but you're still going. So why don't you just briefly tell our audience what got you here today on Homeschool Your Way?
Great. Yeah. So I was a university professor for about 30 years. And I taught the introductory chemistry course, which is usually for freshmen. But I spent most of my time teaching a course called organic chemistry, which is really where students who want to become physicians or nurses or all kinds of different scientists go. But it's typically labeled as the pre-med weed out course. And I would have maybe 200 or 300 students in a lecture at a time. So it's a big enrollment course. It serves a lot of different majors, but it's filled with students who are brilliant, right? All of these children have always excelled academically since the time they could tie their shoes. And so they've had success after success after success academically, and are confident in going to college to become, pre-med or be on the pre-med track. And then they get to organic chemistry and they sink. And sinking for them could mean a lot of different things. Sinking could be a B. I've seen students completely devastated with a B because it's their very first B in their life. Sinking could be a C, D, withdraw, drop, fail, all of the above. But it impacts about the part that kind of brought me here is for 30 years, the statistic is about 50% of college students either drop, withdraw, or get a C or below in organic chemistry. And that's nationally. And so nothing we've been doing in all the trends in education, and especially in science education, are moving that. So that means those students can no longer pursue their dreams, right? And so it costs them literally millions of dollars over a lifetime. If you calculate what having to change from pre-med to business, it adds another year to their college career, which is tuition. So the cost financially to my homeschoolers can be a lot if they're not ready for chemistry in college. And these statistics, again, are what brought me here today. So I thought, well, we've got these brilliant students. They don't lack motivation. They don't lack preparation. What are they lacking? And it really took me 25 years to figure it out, that for the most part, students come to college and are what I've termed as molecularly illiterate, meaning that they are not able to read chemistry. And I started doing research about what it takes to learn chemistry. And literacy just kept coming back and coming back and coming back. And I learned that learning chemistry is like learning to read. And if you use the same strategies and tools in teaching chemistry that you use for teaching to read, you can develop molecular literacy by age 8, 9, 10. And that's really when we should be starting. If students are coming to college molecularly illiterate, and then they're not giving these tools, it would be basically like sending a child to college who could barely read, and then saying, you're going to become an English major, and dissect Hemingway and write a thesis on that. Go. So I really think it's important that we understand what molecular literacy is and how it is the fundamental key to success in college chemistry, and that college chemistry is a prerequisite for 50 STEM majors. So there are 50 majors that depend on chemistry. And if you don't pass chemistry, you're going to change your major. And I really want to give that gift to homeschoolers that we can do this, and I've discovered how. And as you can tell, I'm so excited about it because I don't want that statistic to exist 10 years from now.
What I think is amazing is that you're choosing to share this, first of all, with homeschool families, right? Like, I am curious, as you've developed this and did this research and found out about molecular literacy, where does the education system, the people that you've talked to, like, how do they feel about it? Do they go like, oh, that makes sense, but there's nothing we can do about it? Or, because I kind of feel like we find these groundbreaking ideas, right? And then it doesn't get implemented anywhere.
Yeah, 100%, Jenna. You just nailed it. Of course, the feedback is great, and hopefully, shortly after this podcast comes out, my TED Talk will be out. So you can see, some of the genesis of the idea and where it came from. And when I describe that or show clips of that to folks in the public school sector, again, they're like, "This is awesome. We love it, but we can't." It's not part of our standards. No third, fourth grader should be learning chemistry at this level. We're happy where things are. And again, because I come from higher ed and I've seen the end, and I know that no amount of slime making and no amount of, these baking soda, quote unquote, volcanoes, you could do those to the cows come home and you're not going to pass college chemistry. That isn't science. And that's not going to help our kids be successful in science in college.
And in a world where we are constantly being told that America is behind in the STEM field, right? Like we know that statistically there are other countries that have a much higher rate of new grads going into the field, having an understanding of where this is all coming from. You wonder like, why wouldn't we listen? But I think unfortunately our society on a whole, there's so many things are broken that nobody knows where to start to add the fixes. And so I feel so fortunate to be part of the homeschool community where we can be a little bit more proactive and selective in what we share and what we give our kids. So to have this opportunity, which I think, Colleen, could be groundbreaking. Like if we could start seeing homeschool kids just excel in this area, when they decide to go to college and they start going, oh my gosh, statistically these homeschool kids are doing much better than 50%, right? We're knocking those numbers down, and it's not about the numbers because those numbers just equal success for our students. And so this idea of molecular literacy, I mean, what an amazing discovery, let's say, an awareness that we can bring to parents and say, it really could be this simple. Can we believe this?
It really can be this simple. And that's why a lot of times, to your point, this notion of just get through it. I've heard that from so many of my students. They say, well, I just need to get through this. And that's so sad. First of all, you're paying money.
A lot of money.
Right. And it's essential foundational I ended my TED Talk with chemistry isn't just about science. It's a shared story of everything. And I feel like molecular literacy is a universal language that can bridge divides, create unity. We're all made of the same molecules on a fundamental level. And I feel like there's so much more power than we give it, that to get through it is just missing so much joy in life and understanding about our world. And then there's, of course, the professional applications of it as well. But it really transcends. I mean, I talked to my mom about, she said, I heard vitamin C is really good for your skin, and she's looking for skincare products with vitamin C. And she said, well, I bought this one. It says it has vitamin C, but I don't see it anywhere. And so I said, let me see the label, Mom. And it said ascorbyl palmitate. I'm like, oh, that's a really good kind of vitamin C. And she's like, well, how was I supposed to know that? I'm like, yeah, that one's worth every penny. It has a really good ingredient in it. But, we shouldn't be gatekeepers of that information. Everyone should be privy to it, because it's as simple as, trying to find a good skincare product to becoming a doctor.
So, in your experience as you were teaching your chemistry courses, you obviously understood what was being presented to the students. Where did you see, where was like the first thing that you saw that you're like, I've lost these kids already?
Right. So I always tell the story about when I kind of lived in a bubble through undergrad and grad school, this chemistry bubble where all my friends were chemists and we were, doing our thing, and so happy, like so happy. And that's the only language we spoke. And, I woke up and ran to the lab because I was so excited. And then when as a young professor, I was 29 years old, went into my very first lecture hall, 200 students in front of me, and I was so excited because I was going to change their lives. And they were going to have so much fun that I was having. And I wanted to give that gift to these young people. And when I scanned their faces, I looked around and I'm like, they're not seeing me like the superhero I think I am. They're looking at me like more like a female Darth Vader of sorts. Like already, like they're like, ooh, there's our chemistry professor and she's gonna smash our dreams. And I was curious, like, why? Why do they think this is so hard? And where is this coming from? And in that year, I would have students come to office hours and say to me, Dr. Kelly, you drew all these sticks on the whiteboard, but we don't know what those sticks are. And I just was like, whoa, there's on either end, there's a carbon that's implied, and those are two electrons between them. And it dawned on me that they're not seeing what I'm seeing. I'm seeing, they see a hexagon and I see cyclohexane, with, formula, C6H12. And they just see a hexagon. And another student asked me, they said, why are you always drawing stop signs on the board? I'm like, I'm not drawing stop signs. Those are molecules. And I'm so glad they're saying this to me, because I got to see what's behind their eyes doesn't match what's behind my eyes. And that became my burning question, is how do I get them to see this? And really the best answer is start when you're young, to develop this skill. It's a neural pathway that needs to be developed over time. It's not instantaneous. But without that neural pathway developed, and with one semester and stakes high so that they don't have to change their majors, how do I get them to see what I'm seeing? And that's where the comic book characters and the stories came into play, where I was like, okay, what tool can I have to bridge this gap? Well, I can start talking about Flooring being like Piglet, and they can imagine Piglet being small and clingy and, not wanting to leave, and Bromine being like Winnie the Pooh, like kind of big and puffy and wandering off into 100-acre woods just joyfully. And, as I started telling these stories with Disney characters and Pixar characters and Shrek and all these other things, I started developing my own characters. And that was out of desperation. I knew that I needed something to bridge that gap. And for me, it was storytelling with giving persona to elements and molecules.
You know what I love about homeschooling? Those moments when everything just clicks. But let's be honest, science can be intimidating to teach. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Bookshark Science. Science made simple with Bookshark. Their NGSS-aligned curriculum takes all the guesswork out of science education. Instead of dry textbooks, you get engaging literature that makes scientific concepts come alive. Instead of scrambling for supplies, everything arrives in one complete kit. Your kids will explore fascinating ecosystems, investigate chemical reactions, and conduct real experiments that actually work. It's hands-on learning that turns your home into an adventure zone of discovery. What I appreciate most is how Bookshark combines the rigor of proper science education with the joy of exploration. No more dreading science time. Now it's the highlight of your homeschool day. Head to bookshark.com and see why families everywhere are choosing Bookshark to make science simple, engaging, and unforgettable.
And from a homeschool mom who is a champion of literature-based learning, I mean, everything is a story, right? Every single thing can be taught in a story. Our lives are a story. It can be understood in a story. So I get excited for something like this as well because I'm like, yes, this is what it's just it's a different vernacular, right? So we talk about like if you come into, like if people are not a math person, and I'm going to air quote that because I don't believe in that phrase, but this is what people think, right? And it's like, but you can tell a story and you can understand a story. We just have to figure out what words your story is in, right? And so this is exciting because the same concept is now brought into chemistry, a subject that a lot of people either dread or trudged through or avoid altogether. Like, I know some people like, what major doesn't need this class?
Yes.
Because I'm not going to pass it, or it's going to be too much work, or I can't do it. And then if they were to have this molecular literacy, again, we're trying to say let's give it to them at a younger age, but anyone is where they're at this point in time.
Right. Right.
So just seeing that it just has to be told a different way. We keep telling it the same way, the story the same way. Nobody's getting it. Maybe we're speaking a different language. Like, you think about scientists, right? And you get giddy and you think you're putting you think you're representing something and all they're saying is sticks. It's the same idea. Like, we just have to find the story that connects with them. And what kid doesn't like a comic story?
Right, right, right. And you bring up a really good point earlier when you were talking about the ages. Again, I'm pretty cheeky in a lot of my talks. The title is my TED Talk was Molecular Literacy for Ages 8 to 108. And the lower limit of 8 is just because of I like to get students when they have just finished learning to read and they transition to reading to learn. That's the sweet spot for my beginning a new language, basically, is what I'm talking about. So they're learning the language of chemistry. But if you were a beginner, I don't play a musical instrument, but maybe someday I want to learn piano. I'm going to start where an 8-year-old starts or a 5-year-old starts, right? So if you're a beginner, no matter what age you are, I'm going to start with a literacy pathway. So if you think about learning a foreign language, if you think about learning music, these are all kinds of ways that intergenerational learning can happen. So what I want to encourage the homeschool audience is a lot of times I get questions about, well, do you have this for 4th grade? Do you have this for 8th grade? And I want to say, you know what? Let's all learn it together, because unless you're, a professional chemist, you could probably learn something from these too. And intergenerational learning is what I'm so passionate about with this platform. I can imagine a homeschool family's 4th grader, 8th grader, 12th grader, and parent reading the comics and doing the puzzles together and all learning. They're going to have a little bit of depth difference, but basically the same thing and progressing the same. So think of it more like learning music or learning maybe Mandarin, a language that's not based in our symbols. Because again, when I look at Mandarin, it does look like sticks to me. I have no idea what those symbols are. So again, the age is really important that we talk about this with homeschool families, because they think because my characters are cute, that there's no way their junior in high school would want this or think it was useful. And I can guarantee you, I scaffolded the learning objectives found in freshman chemistry at the University of Arizona and nationally to create these. So this is currently college level chemistry that actually should be elementary school chemistry, but it's not. So hopefully that's clarifying on what I'm trying to do and how, one thing I've also thought of, like, how much fun would this be for me to go to assisted living and nursing homes and, say, hey guys, you want to learn some chemistry? Why not? Because it is intergenerational learning. So, someone in their late 80s who never picked it up could pick it up from this series.
Yeah, and it's entertaining. I
Yes.
mean, that's the part that I was a little skeptical about because I'm not a chemistry person, air quotes. So I thought, oh, how could we possibly make chemistry entertaining and interesting? And here I am reading through the case files, and I'm like, oh, I had no idea that that's what that meant. Oh, I mean, I know I've been introduced to some of these concepts because I took freshman level chemistry in college and I passed, but I didn't remember any. Like it didn't, it's the verbiage is done in such a way that it makes sense. And that's why I'm like excited, like homeschool parents, get a hold of this because we're actually on the cutting edge of something that the public schools aren't going to be able, once they do decide and see the need for it, it's going to take them years to implement because that's how bureaucracy works, where we can get it and be like, holy moly, look, my 8-year-old understands some of these concepts that I went through college chemistry, I still don't understand, but I'm excited to revisit it because now I already had a little bit of a pathway, some connection to it, some understanding of it. But then, like you said, coming in and just reading the comic book, I was like, oh, that's what that meant. It never clicked when I was in the class. I was just trying to get through.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad. And I think sometimes I'll show pictures of children that I'm working with who are reading it. And I get the question, like, what is a good moment? I'm like, when I see their shoulders going up and down because they're giggling, right? And the other thing I see that is two more things I see is so much fun is I showed a picture to my son. He's like, Mom, you know how they're into it? I'm like, how can you tell? And he said, because their butts aren't in their seat. They're up and over their desk and their noses are touching the books. And I looked around, I'm like, yeah, they all do that. They want to, like, it's almost physically an urge to dive into the book and be part of the story. And then the other thing I think homeschool families will witness at home is I didn't prescribe this, but they read to each other in character. So one will say, you be Poppy and I be Ray and you be Granny Eve. And they take roles. So it becomes this dynamic, almost like you're reading a script for a play or something like that. And that's fun because I can hear them reading to each other. And reading aloud is courageous. It's an empathic exchange because they'll stumble over words and they help each other with the words. And they're like, what does that mean? I don't know. And then they'll ask me. So there's all kinds of cool little nuggets that were unintended, but are just as important as the learning of the chemistry.
I will say one of the nuggets that I grabbed onto immediately was the history.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you just don't think of chemistry as history, right? We have these people who made these amazing discoveries and they were able to explain it, but to see like these characters, these well-known scientific characters in a story, but the story is true, right? Or the stories are modeled after, it's like, wow, I was actually reading this at dinner the other night to my family, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this company was we as a this company and then as a government, I guess, or a society, we thought that this chemical was safe, that it was okay, that I saw the advertisement like women buy this to make your face shine." I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, but you don't know what you don't know, and history repeats itself. So I thought it was really applicable to what we were talking about at dinner. I was like, does this happen now? What are we told that is healthy and non-hurtful for now? And then in 5 to 10 years from now, they'll be like, just kidding. Like maybe if we had a better basic understanding of chemistry, when someone says something, we'd be like, that doesn't seem right because we can look at the periodic table and go, I don't know. Like, I'm not a chemist, but I think maybe that's incorrect.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I do. I'm a history buff too. I love it. And when Jenna, when you get to the third comic book is a parody on The Princess Bride. So it's anyway, it's super funny because they're trying to rescue Lady Xenon, who's been captured by the evil pirate Clive, who's chlorine. And her true love is Sir Carbon, the six electron man. So there's all of that parody. So there, and then the fourth comic book you'll learn about Starry Night and Van Gogh. And so there's history, but I picked pieces that were timeless, like 1700 pirates stories are always timeless, so that they're not going to age out. I've got a lot of old-timey stuff going on because they're classic. And so my stories are grounded in very classics kind of things. And I continue with that, including their mode of transportation and the communication through the 1930s radio. I picked things that are so old that they're timeless now.
Yeah. So real quick before we end, why don't you just give a quick introduction to the main characters inside the comic book?
Sure, sure. So the two sibling sleuths are named Poppy and Ray. Poppy for polonium and Ray for radium. And they're twins. And Poppy is a little bit on the anxious side. She likes learning in a traditional sense. She likes order, but she's also trying to be a little more chill. So she says she's trying to be 10% more zen, which I think is hilarious. Like she has a percentage on how much more zen or chill she wants to be. So she's trying, but she wants to know things. And her twin brother, Ray, is what I call an intuitive learner. And behind the scenes, what I'm doing is trying to capture all different kinds of learners. You rarely, or I think there's only one time you see Ray's eyes because he has this big puffy hair. You can kind of see him behind me, and his eyes are always covered. And that's because Ray experiences the world with his stomach or his gut. And so he's always eating and looking for gross snacks. But what I'm trying to show is the intuitive learner, the person who knows things without knowing why they know things because he feels things. So he's that kind of learner. And a lot of times he'll blurt out the obvious solution to a mystery they're trying to solve because he felt it. And Poppy has to take a step back and be like, I think actually you're right about that. And so Ray appears to be a goofball. And I really love that he is on par with Poppy in solving the problems. They contribute equally. And Ray is a lot modeled after my son, who has hair like that, by the way. But also, I think, you have these misunderstood learners who feel like they're disengaged and they're not paying attention when really they are. They're just showing their interest in it in an alternative way. Then they are joined by their Granny Eve, and Granny Eve was a chemist, but Poppy and Ray don't know that. And so Granny Eve is always making chemistry concoctions in the kitchen behind their backs. And she sends them on these mysterious missions all through time and time travel. And the last character is the radio MC. Spoiler alert, MC stands for Marie Curie. And Marie Curie is whispering to Granny Eve through the old radio about different things that the sibling sleuths can go back in time, or, to a rock concert or some location to solve a mystery.
I will say that in the second case study, the fact that they needed to really understand the structure of an atom in order to keep everything that we have in our modern day world alive. And it's like cell phones and computers. And I was like, wow, everything's tied to that. Like I just thought it was here I am, like I said, 47. And I was like, I guess I just didn't, I had no idea. It's not even something I didn't think about. I didn't know, this, that, all of these things come back to makes sense now that I say it, like the smallest, thing. But yeah, it just, again, I really enjoyed it. I'm so excited for this to continue, to see where you go with this, and for families to be able to latch on to this. It's almost like the secret ingredient that we've kind of been privy to, that is still kind of, new, that is, starting to come out. But like I said, I would love to see homeschool families grab onto this, have their students excel, and then we just start showing society that you guys, once again, we were wrong, but let's just admit we were wrong. And now we know we can do better. And then give this opportunity to all students to start at a younger age, so that if those little kids who want to, dream to be a doctor, or all of those other, you said 53 professions or fields come from you have to do chemistry. So just give the kids the tools, so that if that's what they want, that's what they get.
Yep. We need people to be able to follow their dreams. That's all I want.
Yeah. Yeah. And on this day and age, when so many people are miserable, let's just be honest, right? Like, with their job, with their choices, where they live. I don't even know. It just, like, misery just seems to seep out of a lot of places these days. Like, what an exciting thing as parents, as educators, to be able to kind of buck that trend and say, we want people to do what they love. So let's give them the tools that they need so that they can follow those dreams. And you're a part of that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to make sure that all of Chemistry Colleen's links are in the description. We'll also put a link for the comic book so that you guys can get it. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Dr. Colleen Kelly. You can also reach out to Homeschool Your Way, and we'll get you guys connected. But we are so grateful that you're here. Dr. Kelly, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, until next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Homeschool Your Way, a podcast by Bookshark. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening now, so you'll be notified of future episodes. And if you have questions you'd like the hosts to answer, or have any feedback about the podcast, please visit bookshark.com/podcast to leave your comments. Or you can simply email podcast@bookshark.com.